Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. 2 days ago it was snowing here and now it's beautiful and warm once again. Today we're going to dig out my elm trees. These just grew in the front garden all by themselves. I didn't plant them. I believe they're just your typical American elm. I will check the exact species later on. I'll cross-reference it with, the leaf and try and find out exactly what type of elm it is. It's possible it's a rock elm, which is a native Canadian elm, but I'll check that out later on. So digging this area, we've got a lot of trees in this one small area. I'm gonna have to dig a big trench around, dig the trees up, try and separate them. So far, digging out of this garden, most of the roots have just gone straight down in the soil. One of the reasons I'm trying to get a lot of these trees out of the garden is I want to redo the whole garden and make it more of a proper pre-bonsai garden. So I want to get pathways put in so I can get access to all the trees. I want to put bonsai soil down in the garden so the roots are growing in a free draining bonsai soil rather than this clayish garden soil, and get some tree species in here that are really suitable for bonsai, not native trees like walnuts and Manitoba maples. So that's my goal, is eventually get this garden redone. And so a lot of these trees in the front garden, they get a lot of sun here for early morning to late afternoon, so it's an artificial heat zone in here, and a lot of them are starting to leaf out already, whereas trees in the backyard and that, without this white reflector wall around them, they come out a little later. So this is kind of a microclimate in here. My wife is dying to grow her tomatoes in this area, so maybe I'll give her one spot, I don't know. So let's get to it. We're going to dig out our elm trees. So here's a close-up of the elm. You can see the leaves are just starting to come out. You can see the trunk on it. Yeah. A fairly tall tree, but these elms have a fairly large leaf size, so it's best to make it a fairly large bonsai tree. And I like the tall trunks on them. I'm not a big fan of the big fat tapered trunks. I like my trees to be more natural looking, like you'd see them in nature. These leaves coming out here, they're Manitoba maple leaves. They look really, really nice in spring when they come out. They almost look like a Japanese maple. And then as the leaves mature and elongate, they get, quite large compound leaves. And they don't look so good. But they look really good in spring. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try and dig around as many trees as I can. Ugh. Okay, here we go. Wow, the ground's really hard down here. Probably roots under here. Okay, so I'm getting close to getting the first elm out. We'll get our loppers in there and cut that fairly large root down here at the back, like so. That one's out of the ground. Wow, what a wild root system, eh? However, there are a lot of good fine roots up top. Enough to start the tree, I think. So there's one out of the ground. And I'm going to place this in the bucket of water until I get all the others out. That'll keep the roots alive until I go to put it in a pot. Okay, so onwards we go. This is the big elm that I probably want to get out the most. Get these roots going properly. Elms have great root systems. They can recover quickly from root pruning. They're a vigorous tree. So you can do a lot to the roots on an elm, and they usually survive. Way down here. There. And it's out. So there's those big roots I cut off. Not a bad root system, it's fairly shallow. Gives us a lot to work with. Whew. So we'll get that in the water now. Prune it up later on. Okay, on to our last elm. This Manitoba maple's kind of wrapped its roots around the trunk of this elm. We'll try and keep the Manitoba maple in the ground and get the elm out. Now, I'm hoping one of these trees comes free. There we go. If we can get this maple out around it here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so 2 big roots. A few surface roots that we can use. These will have to get cut off. See if the tree lives. Okay, this is the pot we're gonna put it in. It's just a plastic, I think it's a kitty litter tray or something. It has drainage holes in the bottom, which is nice. So the first thing we're gonna do is put in a layer of coarse gravel for drainage. Just like that. Spread an even layer across the bottom. That looks good. And I think, there's the chickens. I think with this size pot, I think I can fit all 3 elms in this pot, which is kind of nice to keep them together. So the next step is to put a layer of bonsai soil in, and then we'll prune the roots up and put the trees on top, and then fill it in with soil. So let's keep going. And the soil's nice and dry, so it'll flow around the roots really well. There we go. So let's start on the trees and some root work. So we're going to start with the big elm first. I'll just talk about root pruning a bit. When the tree's in the ground, it has a lot of vigor. It's had these big roots. All the energy now is in the tree and less in the roots at this time of year. So when you root prune, it's a good time to do it now, because you can do some pretty severe root pruning and the tree lives. The energy's in the tree, the leaves come out, it puts energy back down into the roots, which grows your roots. So we want to be fairly severe with the root pruning at first, because once it's in a pot, it has less vigor than in the ground. You don't have as much root mass to store energy. So you want to make your first initial root pruning a good one. You want to get rid of everything you're not going to use. There's no point, letting roots grow out from the tips of these thick ones if they're way out here. You want to prune it back. You can see it'll fit in the pot okay, but we want our root division to start fairly close to the trunk, where we're dividing from 1 root into 2 roots, 2 into 4, and so on. We don't want roots way out at the edges. Just like we don't want long branches with foliage at the end of the tree, or end of the branch. We want it in closer. Okay, so we're going to do some fairly major lopping now. Okay, so I've got my saw, and just going to clean up these cuts too. Need to put the tree in a wood vise, I think. We won't. think I'm gonna go in right here. Just about through here. There we go. So there's the root we're cut off. And there's our root base now. Not too bad. We're just going to dunk it in water again. Keep the roots wet. Like so. And then we still have some further root pruning to do. Okay, so after some severe root pruning, I've got them ready for planting. And again, this is the time to prune roots severely, to get them close to, you know, what you want. You haven't got a lot of time invested in the tree. You don't want to plant it with great big long roots and then have to do this years later. So we're going to put the main tree there. We'll put this tree in the corner and the smaller tree at the back here. Somewhere, I'm going to move this one over a bit. I want to give each tree its own root space, but you still want to kind of make it look nice if you can. So here's the trees planted, and you'll notice I've got them buried fairly deeply. I'm not worried about showing surface roots or anything at this point in time. We want to keep the roots down low, keep them moist, keep it well watered. We can start fertilizing as soon as you know, it shows signs of growing, and that doesn't mean when the leaves come out, because they'll probably come out even if it had no roots. So when it starts showing secondary signs of growth, so when the new leaves come out and then it starts actually growing, you want to start fertilizing. And you can fertilize fairly heavily. You're not worried about keeping fine tips or anything at this point in time. All we want to do is get the health back in the tree after the severe root pruning. You'll notice that the soil level is just slightly below the lip of the pot. So it's easy to water, it doesn't flow over the pot or anything. And with a big tray like this, you get a lot of surface evaporation on the soil. So I'm going to place a lot of large flat rocks all around it to prevent surface evaporation, and it will keep it well watered. How confident am I that these trees are going to survive? I'm fairly confident for the main tree. It had a lot of fairly good roots. Some of the others, I kind of think they'll all survive, is my gut feeling. If they don't, they don't. I mean, they're not spectacular trees or anything at this point in time anyway. They may never become spectacular trees either, but we'll see what we can do with them. Okay, so we've got our elm trees watered. I put some bricks on the top and some stones. Trees are nice and firm in here, so they're ready to grow. It's not the most glamorous planting in the world, but it's a start. So we'll see how they do, and we'll check in. If they make it through spring, we'll check in with them in the summer. Here's some full-size elms in the backyard of the same species as my pre-bonsai trees. Just have a look at them. If I had to describe the styling of them or the shape of them, I would say they're elegant. All the branches reach up to the crown. They're a great shade tree in the summer, fast growing. Nice fall colors on the leaves. They get tints of yellow. So that's it for today. Nigel Saunders of KW Bonsai. We'll see you next time.